Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and today what I want to talk about is books that we read that we don't fully understand and how we live with that and how that affects our view of the book and whether or not that means we like it or not. So this is something that I struggle with. I'm not the most analytic of readers. Probably an understatement, a gross understatement. I'm not. This could be a byproduct of laziness. It could be a byproduct of skepticism. It could be just pure hard-headedness, but I've always, ever since English classes in high school, where somebody tried to explain the symbolism and the underlying meaning of a work of fiction, I've always kind of, in some ways, rebelled against that. It's not that I don't think authors intentionally include symbols and symbolism. It's not that I don't think they have an underlying meaning. It's that on some level, I think that I should be able to pick up on that, or I should be able to appreciate that if the author has done their job. Now, you could say this is just me absolving myself as my job as a reader for analyzing, and that may be fair in some circumstances. But I also do think the author has this obligation to communicate their meaning to us, whether using symbolism or language or structure. In some way, they are telling us a story. They are communicating with us, and so I do put some of the burden on them. And it's not that I don't do any analysis. And so in thinking about this topic, which has been bugging me for quite some time, really since I finished a book not long ago that I really, really liked, and then kind of picking up when I saw Marc Nash do kind of his video about experimental fiction, which I thought was just great. I'll leave a link to down below. I really started trying to think my way through this. Why do I not engage in in-depth analysis sometimes? Why do I sometimes engage in in-depth analysis? So I just want to kind of talk to you about some books that fall into the category of books I'm not sure I fully understand, and then talk about maybe why I like some of them and maybe why I don't. Okay, so the first book I want to talk about is Jason Harrigan's favorite book, and that's Umberto Eco's Foucault's Pendulum. I can't say I don't like this book because I've never made it any further than, let's see, my bookmark is on page 145. So I would classify this book as a puzzle book, which is demeaning it in ways I don't mean to, probably, and being unfair. But there are all kinds of layers and meaning that relate to other books and other works and things like that I don't know, that I'm not familiar with, that I don't understand, and therefore I always feel like when I'm reading it I'm missing something important, and at some point with Foucault's Pendulum I just kind of give up and don't go on because the story in of itself just doesn't grab me well enough. There are some books which I don't fully understand, like Nightwood by Djuna Barnes, because I think that they are perhaps, taking experimental fiction too far and being intentionally obscure and difficult. I'm sorry about my dogs. They apparently Ike doesn't like this topic. But this is a book I plan to reread. I recently read a book of essays by Judith Schalansky called An Inventory of Losses, which is all about things that have been lost. And some of these things are, environmental losses. Some of them are human losses. Some of them are, historical losses. And I see the connection between them. And by the way, I think the book is just physically beautiful. But my reaction on the whole was kind of, meh, I'm not sure I understand what the point of all this was. I'm not sure I see the connection. And so this would be kind of a book I read that I'm not sure I fully understand, that I would go kind of have a meh reaction to. And then there are books I don't understand that I don't like at all, and that would, an example of that would be Naked Lunch by William S. Burroughs, which I just found to be, for lack of a better word, kind of gross. It seemed like for grossness' sake. I'm not a prude, and I'm not that easily upset by gross or disturbing images, but I just failed to see the point, and I wasn't interested in continuing on. So I would classify all those books in some ways as books that I didn't understand, that I didn't and have not felt like really pursuing, even though I am planning on rereading Nightwood by Djuna Barnes. And then there are books which, are kind of the opposite for me, that kind of fall in different categories. These are also books I'm not sure that I fully understand, but I like. I have an admiration for what the author was trying to accomplish. Sometimes they can be books that I like quite a bit. Sometimes they're actually, and we'll get to this at the end, books and authors whose works I really truly love, even if I don't feel like I understand them. So there are all kinds of ways in which I think I don't understand books. So let's just go with books I don't understand because there are a lot of details that are not a part of my historical background and understanding. Probably the book I like the best and extol the virtues of the most that qualifies there is The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. Oh, I can't say names today. Sorry, Bulgakov. There we go. This book is great. I enjoyed it. I thought it was beautiful. I thought the story was interesting and weird and funny. But to be honest with you, and I have a feeling this is true for most people who read it, I don't really understand all of the satire of the publishing industry, the publishing business in the Soviet Union during the Cold War. I don't know who all the figures in that world represent. Because I didn't live or wasn't trying to write in the Soviet Union during that time period, I can't really understand everything and all the details the book's about. I could go look all those things up, but that's the kind of analysis that I'm not interested in doing. The ultimate example of that would be Ulysses by James Joyce. I love reading Ulysses. I've read it a couple of times. It is a book that I find to be at times beautiful, at times heartbreaking, at times funny, at times romantic, and times a little bit sexy. I like the book, but Joyce intentionally packed it with all kinds of details about life in Dublin at the time in which he wrote it and that day on which the book takes place, June the 16th, which is now known as Bloomsday. He wrote it with all kinds of things that I'm not going to get without looking it up. This is something that Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics and Noah from Everyone Who Reads Must Converse talked about and had a conversation about. And I mentioned, and I said again, I'm not interested in trying to figure all that out. I'm not interested in looking up and knowing all those details. That's me. Again, this could be because I'm lazy. That's perfectly fine for you to feel that way. But to me, this is one of those books where I feel like I got it. I feel like I got what the book was really about and what the intent was. And I saw the beauty in it without having to know all the details. People who want to know all the details I admire them. They spend a tremendous amount of time, looking up all this stuff and trying to understand the meaning, the deeper meanings and the hidden meanings and the inside jokes, and that's fine for them. I think that's great. That's just not who I am for whatever reason may be. Now, having said that, I can also say that there are books which I'm sure I don't fully understand, which I continue to reread. Among those, since I'm on a roll of books Steve Donahue doesn't like, among those would be Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian. I've reread this book. I've read this book 3 times, and I'm still not sure I understand the exact nature of the relationship between the kid and the judge and what each one represents and what each one is. I have ideas, and I find them fascinating. And so, in some ways, for me, I think what causes me to reread and to continue to think about books like Blood Meridian is the characters and, the message. What's the meaning? Even if I may end up thinking that meaning is, ridiculous or overblown or pretentious, there's something about that makes me curious that I want to know in a way that I don't necessarily want to know all the details of the underlying story of a book like Foucault's Pendulum. I'm not exactly sure why that's true, but oftentimes then on some level I think certain books speak to me. And the greatest example of that for me as a reader is William Faulkner's The Sound and the Fury. This is a book I've read I think now 4 or 5 times, and the more I read it, the more I think I find in it, the more connections I find in it, and I'm just endlessly fascinated by the Compson family and the relationships between Quentin and Caddy and Jason, and how all that works out, and all the things Faulkner is saying about the Southern past and Southern society and race relations. These are topics that are interesting to me. And I think the language of the book is beautiful, and I also think the language of Blood Meridian is beautiful. Maybe that's another connection which explains why I like these books so much and why, I continue to read them. And then this is the last category of books I want to get to is books that I know I don't fully understand, but on some level they transcended for me, and this is kind of highfalutin language, I suppose. They transcended knowing on a rational basis for me. There was something about the reading, something about the language, something about the structure, something about the story being told, which I just found to be beautiful. And that beauty is almost created, I think, in an almost, and don't take this too far, but to me it feels like magic. It feels like something which is revealed to me. There's something revelatory about it, and I'm not sure what's revealed to me is the entire meaning. I'm not sure what's revealed to me is the author's meaning, but there is something about it which just strikes me as beautiful. And a lot of these books are books that I will fully admit I don't fully understand and that I intend to reread. One of those would be Dear Friend, From My Life I Write to You in Your Life by Yiyun Lee. I don't know if what I don't understand about this book has to do with cultural differences, again, kind of like the Bulgakov book. Part of this book is set inside China, the period before economic reforms such as they are in China took place. And maybe that's what I understand. Maybe Yiyun Lee is writing from a perspective and from a mindset that I don't get. Lee has struggles with depression and mental health issues. Maybe I don't get it because of ableism. I'm ableist thinking on my part, but even if I don't get and understand everything she's saying, this book was powerful and beautiful to me, and I found it to be really moving. And this is the kind of book I really was, I really wanted to, that kind of inspired me to make this video, a book that I'm not sure, pretty sure I don't fully understand, and yet kind of love on a really deep level. A lot of Toni Morrison books fit that description for me as well. Probably the one I find to be the most challenging is Song of Solomon. I'm still not exactly sure what I'm supposed to think about the events described in this book, or the little bits of magic and improbability that appear in this book, and what they're symbolic of. But I love this book, and I think it's great, and I have reread it a couple of times now because of that. And then probably the author who I think probably symbolizes this the most, and this again is something that Mark in his video reminded me of. The author who probably symbolizes this the most for me is W.G. Sebald, who every time I read one of his books, I'm fascinated by what he's talking about. It seems incredibly simple. It seems like he's just talking about things either he's done or experiences from his life, or people he's known, or experiences he's heard from the life of others. And it just seems like he's telling stories in a language, in a way that I find to be really interesting and beautiful, and then somehow things start to fall into place, as though he is just creating a structure in my mind, which then I can see complete by the end of the book, but there's still something ephemeral about them, about his books for me. When I'm reading them, I am loving it. I'm loving the experience. I'm transfixed by it. I'm transported by them. All kinds of, again, highfalutin words. But when it's over, I'm not sure I could tell you exactly what it was about. And the longer I go on, the more my memories of the book have to do with the impression they made on me, and not the information they imparted to me. And then the book which really kind of set me thinking about this is a book I read recently and reviewed, and that's The Other Name by Yiyun Fosse. This book was just beautiful. I just loved it. I just thought it was masterfully created, with repeated language and repeated images and repeated forms, and slowly revealing a greater and greater depth of emotion. I just thought it was stinking freaking beautiful, and I'm not sure I understood it. I have the other two books in the septology. I is Another Name is the next two volumes, and I'm planning on getting that as soon as I possibly can. because I just loved it. So maybe what I'm saying is something as simple as I don't need to understand what the book's about. If I find the book beautiful, then I enjoyed it, I read it, I moved, I will love the book whether I can explain it or not. And I think that is something that's true of me. And I think what a lot of other people find beautiful in books is the intricacy and the teasing out of all the details and all the levels of meaning and all the in jokes. And I just think readers are somewhat different. So this is kind of a rambly discussion about books that I may or may not have understood, I may or may not fully get, that I just wanted to make. I'm not exactly sure that this video had any purpose or intention, but you know, maybe I'm just trying to reach out and see if other people are like me, and how many people feel the way about certain books that I do. Anyway, as always, I look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and thank you for watching.